Shortly after Avram and Sarah and Lot reached the land of Israel, in this week's Torah portion of Lech Lecha, there is a famine, and the three of them go down to Egypt because there's food. And there's an incident there, and the end result is that Avraham ends up with great wealth. Vayal Avram in Mizrayim, and Avram makes Aliyah to leave Egypt and go back to Israel. Hu v'ishto v'chol ashalo, he, his wife Sarah, and all their possessions. Excuse me. V'lot imo, and their nephew Lot was with them. Hanegba, to the Negev, to the southern part of Israel. V'Avram kaved ma'od b'mikneh b'kesef b'zav. Avram at this point was exceedingly wealthy, with cattle, with sheep, with silver, with gold. Excuse me. V'gam l'Lot ha'olechas Avram. And Lot also was wealthy. Haya tzon ubakar v'oalim. He had large flocks of sheep and herds of cattle. So that kind of living requires a lot of space because the animals have to pasture. V'lo nasa osam haaretz l'sheves yachtav. The land where they were was not big enough for the two of them. It sounds like an old Western. This town ain't big enough for the two of us. Ki haya ruchusham rav, because they each had a lot of possessions and they needed a lot of room. V'lo yachlu l'sheves yachtav, and they were not able to live together in harmony. There was divisiveness between Avraham and Lot. And vayhi riv bein ro'ei mikneh Avram ubein ro'ei mikneh Lot. There were arguments between the shepherds of Avram and the shepherds of Lot. Vaknani v'aprizi az yoshev ba'aretz, and the Canaanim and the Prizim lived there at that time in the land. We discussed that word uz yesterday. Vayomer Avram el Lot, and Avram says to his nephew Lot, Al nati meriva beini beinecha. There should not be arguing between me and you, bein ro'ai or bein ro'echa, between my shepherds and your shepherds. Ki anashim achim anachnu, because we're brothers. We're like brothers. Nephew and uncle, but we're like brothers. And we should not be arguing. Halo kol haaretz lefonecha. The whole land is in front of us. There's lots of empty land here. What we need to do is we need to give each other space. Hipare name alai. And let's each go our own way. And Avram says to Lot, you choose where you want to go. Im hasmol ve'mina. If you choose to go to the left, I'll go to the right. V'im hayamin esmeila. And if you choose to go to the right, I'll go to the left. That is, I don't care which direction I go in. You choose where you want to go, and I'll be somewhere else. In this passage, with this suggestion, Avraham is teaching us a very important practical lesson. It is relevant to every one of us in every relationship that we have, in every social contact that we have. Sometimes, it's not always, but sometimes, in order to keep peace, it's necessary to give space for the other person. It's necessary to move away a little bit from the other person. Now, it's not all the time. Some situations do not call for this, but sometimes it does. There's an insight that I have repeated. I heard it first from Label Tripp, who was a wonderful member of ADATH, passed away a number of years ago. Later, I heard it from Rabbi Shlomo Amar, former Sephardi chief rabbi of Israel. I've heard it from other sources. But the idea is as follows. Our most important prayer is the Amidah. The last line of the Amidah reads as follows. And the last line of the Amidah is exactly the same as the last line of the full Kaddish. Oseh shalom b'mromav. May he, God, who makes peace in the heavens, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, may he make peace among us, ve'al kol Yisrael, and among all of Israel. When we say those words, either at the end of the Amidah, the Shemona Esrei, or at the end of Kaddish, we have the practice to take 3 steps backwards. Why do we take 3 steps backwards before we say those words? Because sometimes, not always, but sometimes, in order to make peace, we must step back and give room to the other person. Rodney Dangerfield put it differently. He was talking about he and his wife. He said, we sleep in separate rooms, we have dinner apart, we take separate vacations, we're doing everything we can to keep our marriage together. And there is truth to that sometimes. And this applies in many, many different contexts. Just for example, kibbud av v'em. We're obligated to honor and respect our parents, which means to serve them when they need something. And especially as our parents age, they need help. And it's our duty, mitzvah, to serve them, to bring them food, to take them where they need to go. Whatever they need, we have to help them as their children. Sometimes, and there are many reasons for it, sometimes the parent doesn't want the help and is upset by it. Sometimes the child doesn't want to give it. It's an imposition. Sometimes it's not really anyone's fault. But for example, in the terrible, terrible situation of dementia, so it's very, very difficult for a child to come to visit a parent when not only does the parent not recognize them anymore, God forbid, but a parent is cursing them and yelling at them. Of course, it's the disease. And you can tell people it's disease. It's the disease from now till tomorrow, but it feels terrible. And sometimes it's not that. Sometimes you have a child that's a little hot-tempered. And if the parent won't eat something, the child may get frustrated. And the child may raise their voice to their parent. The child may even, if they're a little hot-tempered, intemperate, insult the parent, God forbid. God forbid. But it happens. Sometimes it descends into a relationship where there's yelling and arguing and cursing, and in that situation, our sages teach us there is still the obligation to provide for your parent, but it's better do it through somebody else. Hire a helper, have somebody else do it, meaning you're responsible, you as a child are responsible to serve your parent whatever they need. But you don't personally have to be the one to do it. And if you find that you're serving your parent leads you to raising your voice, to not speaking nicely to them, God forbid, but it happens, and I'm close with people, I'm very close with people that are really good people, excellent, beautiful, refined people. And then when it comes at a certain point with their parents, it deteriorates. and it feeds on itself, and it gets worse, and it's cyclical. In that situation, it's better to hire somebody else to provide that help. You still have to provide it. You still have to arrange it. That also can be difficult. But you don't need to be the one who's doing it personally. And if you find that you are not speaking the way you should speak to a parent, or you're not acting the way you should act to a parent, you have to step back. Take 3 steps back. Let somebody else serve the meals. Let somebody else get the person up or take them to the bathroom, for example. Spouses need to recognize when the other needs space. And not just physical space. Sometimes, a person has realized, let's say a couple has an argument. And so one of them says, listen, I know we're going to figure this out, but right now both of us are very upset. I don't want to say any more. I'm going to take a short walk just to cool off so that I calm down. And maybe once both of us are more calm and we're not insulting and yelling and cursing, maybe we can deal with this issue. Person needs space sometimes. But this does not only refer to physical space. Let's say something happens and one spouse is very upset. But they happen to be, I don't know, at the dinner table with the whole family around. Or maybe they're all in Disneyland having a good time or something like that. Maybe this is not the right moment to respond. Maybe it would be better to give space. You don't need to respond to everything immediately. And wait until there's a more appropriate time, when we're alone, when the children are asleep, when we're calmed down, when we can discuss it, when, for example, both of us can go and have a cup of coffee together and kind of on, so to speak, neutral territory, and we can sit and discuss this issue in a calm manner. You don't always have to respond to everything the other one says right away. Maybe that's a time to give space. You don't have to respond to everything the other person says. That's also a form of giving space. There's an argument, and you think it's kind of resolved, maybe kind of, and the other person is walking out of the room and they're muttering something under their breath. You don't have to respond to every single thing that the other person says. Sometimes, not all the time, it depends on the context. Sometimes, let it go. Give space. I don't have to hear every single word that you say. I've shared this before. I think this is such great, great insight. Ruth Bader Ginsberg, of blessed memory, who was on the United States Supreme Court and a very, very wise person in many, many areas, in my opinion. She told the story that on her wedding day, her mother told her, gave her advice being married. Her mother told her, sometimes in marriage, it helps to be a little deaf. You don't have to hear everything. You don't have to respond to everything. That's also a way of giving space. And if you think it is something that you need to respond to, maybe it's better to wait. Give space for a while until everything is calm, and then bring it up and resolve the issue. Sometimes a person needs a hug, and sometimes a person needs space. And sometimes what a person says they need is not what they are really looking for. This applies in every relationship and every social encounter. I saw a cartoon on the internet. So the scene is, it's a bedroom. The wife is in bed. The husband is at a computer in the room. And the wife says, "Are you coming to bed?" And the husband says, I can't come to bed now. This is very important." He's working on the computer. "This is very important." So she says, What are you working on that's so important? You can't come to bed?" And the husband says, "Someone is wrong on the internet." If you see something you don't like on the internet, all you have to do is scroll past it. You don't have to answer every single crazy person who puts something on the internet. That's also a kind of giving space. And that is what Avraham, our forefather, models for us when he separates from Lot to reduce machlokas. It's not all the time, it depends on the context. But sometimes this separation in these different manners that I'm discussing is the appropriate thing. With one caveat. A little bit later in our parsha, the Torah tells us that there was a war. There were 4 kings against 5 kings. It had nothing to do with Avraham. But there was a war. These 4 kings, these 5 kings, they were fighting against each other. Whatever it was about doesn't concern us. But as part of that fighting, Vayikhu es kol rechush Sodom v'Amorah, the enemy captured the city of Sodom and Amorah. Remember, when Avram and Lot separates, Lot goes to the city of Sodom. That's what he chooses. So this enemy army captures the city. Vayikhu es Lot, and they kidnap Lot, who had nothing to do with it. He just they're conquering the city, and he's in the city, so they kidnap him. Vayavo hapolit vayagei lavram, a survivor of that battle comes to Avraham and tells him that your nephew Lot has been kidnapped. Vayishma Avram ki nishba achiv. Avram hears these words that his nephew, it says his brother, but again, they were like brothers, but literally his nephew, was taken captive. Vayorek es chanichav, and he armed his soldiers, Yelidei Beso, all the members of his household, Shmona Asar Shalosh Meos. There were 318 people in his household that he armed as soldiers. Vayirdav Adam and Adon, and he ran to catch up with where they had taken Lot to bring him home. First of all, the 318 people were not soldiers, right? They were the members of his household. They could be, I don't know, they could be cooks, they could be cleaners, they could be gardeners, I don't know what they were. And obviously, 318 against an army of, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, 10,000, who knows? I don't know how big their army was. But they were vastly outnumbered. Avram does not hesitate. Immediately, he takes whatever resources are at his disposal, and he runs to catch up with Lot. Vayichalek alehem laila hu vavadav. He designs an attack that's kind of a guerrilla surprise attack at night. So that's how a smaller number is going to be able to overcome a larger number. Vayakem, and he attacks them. And he routs them. They run away. Vayashev es kol harachush, and so they are able to retrieve all of the spoils that the victorious army earlier had despoiled from Sodom and Amorah. V'gam es Lot achiv, and also they freed Lot, his brother, but really his nephew, uruchusho heishiv, and they returned all his possessions. Whatever level of distance or even animosity that exists between brothers, not just between brothers, but in any relationship where there is some basis of relationship, family members, friends, members of the same community. Whatever the reason for the distancing, whatever the threat of machlokes, if they are together, but when that person is in trouble, you run to help. No hesitation. Because when the other person is in trouble, then distance means nothing. Prior arguing or even fighting means nothing. When someone or a group is in trouble and you have some relationship to them, even if it is a dormant relationship, even if it is a stormy relationship, there must be no hesitation. Everything else of our past history must be set aside until the danger or the difficulty passes. These are the two lessons. I'll put it differently. These are two of the three lessons that Avraham models for us in this passage and teaches us in this narrative. And it is imperative that we try to practice both lessons, each one when appropriate. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.